Okay, we're going to do a test of the thermal image in the stock configuration for the driver area. In this image, cool would be the very lightest colors. To the left in this image, you will see the wall not exposed to any heat. The window there is overcast. There is some heat coming through, but for the most part it's cool. So heat would be dark blue. So I'm going to try to adjust the image. In adjusting the image here, you can see where the heat load is coming. We've got heat load around the exterior of the doghouse. Again, it's cooler in the floor area there, although there's some temperature differential there. There's heat. That's where the heat load is. So it's going to be cooler down there by the driver foot area. That's the doghouse. And it's definitely variable heat distribution here. There's going to be pockets of hot, not so hot. It's interesting that engine cover tends to fluctuate. Again, this isn't much of a scientific, but it gives a reasonable differential in the heat distribution coming from that doghouse. I've never done a temperature check, but this is the heat load at idle. This is the decibel level of the driver area in a stock configuration. Okay, I went ahead and got that barrier in there underneath the wafer board. The wafer board's in there, as well as I've made a cut here in order for this to slide in under the seat each way. In order to slide it this way, I had to get rid of that section there, so I cut it there. And there's a slight trim I need to do here to get it to fit. And I did the same over here. So it's cut just on this side of the brake pedal. And so other than that, it's trim perfect. There's some waste here I'll cut at the end. And the way I've dealt with this seat is I slid the barrier in from the front aft in there, and then what I'll do is cut a piece of plywood, wafer board, and fit that in that section over there. Did that on both sides. So I'm going to, with these sections in place, trim the carpet skirt around the edge here. I spoke earlier about putting a rigid surface around here and then applying heat material on each side of whatever that hard material is going to be. I mentioned Luan, which is a door covering for hollow core doors for residential. houses, but I couldn't find any glue on. I thought about perhaps wood paneling. Unfortunately, Lowe's and Home Depot around here only carry it with the masonite material, which would not make that bend. So I thought what might be easier would be to put 2 layers of this carpeting. It's very stiff, and if I cut 2 pieces back to back and adhesive, and then put another finished carpet on the edge, then I'm looking for the thickness that might be better than a hard paneling. Plus, I'll just add the heat barrier to the inside of this carpet. So I'll have 3 layers of carpet, the heat barrier, and it'll be a little more workable. So what I plan on doing is just simply getting rid of my template I made earlier and just trace this around. See how easy that'll be? Just trace that, cut it, and I got my finished product. It's down to the surface here, this interface. And what I plan on doing with the finish carpet, and it'll be ribbed, it's an indoor-outdoor ribbed going this way. I'll spray adhesive and apply it. I'll drape it just a little bit over, maybe an inch or whatever, and Velcro all the way around. So that will hold it in place, create a seal for any heat that might penetrate in this crack. But I'll have that. Sorry about that. I'll have Velcro all the way around. So I'll go ahead and trim that. Okay, the carpet skirt, that will be the first layer. There'll be a second layer of that carpeting on top of this one, same material. And then there will be a ribbed finish piece. And then underneath this carpet will be that heat sound barrier. So all that paper template that I made before, it's kind of a waste of time, but at least I knew what the angles were going to be and where the touch points would be and how it interface to the bottom floor. So there is some trimming that I have to do for the edges, and there's some minor trimming on top. So I'm going to leave that taped in place, and that whole cover will come off. That's the intention, is that it is essentially a doghouse over a doghouse. So I guess in summation, I'm going to have to do a trim here. There's about a 1/4 inch I need to trim around the map holder. This is all good. There is some insulation. I'll trim that later once I get the corners finished. That is all good. You can see the space once that carpet's applied there. There is space now for the throttle. It's sort of bulking out here. So what I'll do here is add a piece of carpeting and thermal insulation there. But I've got this, there's probably an inch there. And that'll be Velcro. The outer finished piece will be Velcro. That'll drape out to probably an inch beyond the edge trim there. Tile. I'm going to try to match this or contrast it in some way. It's hard to find this color match, but I'm just going to go with the stick tile. And so that'll be good. You can walk on this and not worry about dirtying the carpeting. That carpeting is new. This is a new motorhome, and it just doesn't hold up. They put very cheap carpeting in here. Once I get the tile in, I'll put some edge trim. Once I get the tile in, I'll see how it looks and where I'm going to capture these panels so they're not bouncing and floating around too much. Certainly don't want any squeaking in between them. I will keep those as separate panels, tiled separately, so that this whole thing can come out if I want, or if I want to change tile or whatever. And there'll be a throw carpeting down here around the feet. But at least the main entry here will be tiled. It can be easily cleaned. So I'm going to take this out. I'll leave the insulation in. But I'll take these, well, the only thing I have to trim is that piece there. So I'm going to leave the paneling in here, the floor, and I'll take the doghouse back home and finish it up there. I think I'll do a heat sound check with this on to get a baseline, at least with this minimal incomplete section around here. Okay, I'll go ahead and get a shot of this. This is a thermal imaging on my camera. And the way this works is the lighter colors, the cooler. The darker color would be where your heat source is coming from. So you can see there, you have your heat source coming from those sides because there's no insulation. It's really towards the back here, which I mentioned in my first video. That heat that radiates out of this back area here, the floor especially, as well as the doghouse, is really telling in terms of the heat load coming out of there. I can't get a good shot there, but it's a little cooler up front. But your headers are in that dark blue section along the side. That's where the exhaust is, coming out of that engine. And of course, everything trails back from there. It's kind of hard to get this set up here. So that's a preliminary telling indicator that I'm not getting any heat transfer through this wood with the barrier underneath. I am through that carpeting, because it's just that carpeting one layer thick. On top, nothing there. If I had a thermometer, I'd throw it on there, but I don't need to get that exact. This concludes this part and the resulting preliminary heat and sound results. So we will go ahead, as indicated earlier, those various final touches, and those panels will be put back in place in its final configuration.